Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on fallout from the final Alberta Next town hall. But first, countdown to job action.
I think what we're hoping for is that the teachers will withdraw their threat of strike and get back to the bargaining table so that we can avoid job action. That's what we're hoping for. And they've got a couple of days to be able to make that public pronouncement.
The Premier commenting in the wake of teachers overwhelmingly rejecting the government's latest offers, setting the stage for the largest education strike in the province's history, set to start Monday, October the 6th. And joining us now, Jason Schilling, the president of the Alberta Teachers Association. It seems like just a day or so ago we last spoke, but you're back.
Yeah, I'm back. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And you know, why don't we just start on the outcome of the vote? What are your members saying about why they rejected it?
Well, they're not seeing concrete and meaningful measures that are going to address the concerns that they have within their classrooms. They have oversized classes. They cannot meet the needs of all of their students in terms of the resources that they have available to them. And they're still looking to seek a salary that is recognizing the increased workload that they've had and the loss of purchasing power that they've had to inflation over the last decade, where they've only had a 5.75% increase, and we know inflation's been close to 30. So those are some of the main drivers of why you saw members reject the last memorandum of agreement at such a high rate.
It's been reported that the deal was presented to members in a neutral fashion, that there wasn't lobbying to vote one way or the other, but at the end of the day, this was the deal that ATA decided on to take to its members. So why not urge members to vote yes?
Well, because what you saw there was what government was willing to do to address the issues that teachers had put forward. So for instance, around classroom size and complexity, we had originally put forward something like a student-teacher ratio with a formula that would look at the complexity of students that we have within our classrooms, so that teachers had the resources and the number of students that they could have in there so they could do their jobs well and help every student. Those are all rejected by government. This was what we could get from government to address that. And we wanted to put it towards our members so that they had input on their future. Teachers don't have a lot of input around their jobs, and so we wanted to make sure that their voices were heard through this process.
It was, at the end of the day, it was the decision of teachers. So where would they have been left with had they said yes?
Well, we would have had a collective agreement, and then we would have moved forward with what was stated in there. But teachers sort of...
What would that have left the classroom looking like?
Well, that's the things that teachers are saying, you know, we're going to hire 3,000 teachers, which we agree, we need more teachers in the system. But 3,000 teachers over 3 years, so 1,000 teachers per year, is a drop in the bucket of what we need right now. Public education has been so underfunded for so many years that we're in a crisis situation right now, and teachers are ringing the alarm. But the government doesn't want to seem to answer it.
It feels like we're back in a standoff situation, lack of a better way of putting it. So we just heard the clip of the Premier where she's coming at. To what degree is the ball now in your court to take something forward, to get this process rolling again?
Well, I find it interesting, this ball analogy, because there's two people at the bargaining table. There's two parties there. And so I think both need to sit down and have a conversation. But teachers have rejected a deal twice now, mediators rec in the spring, a memorandum of agreement now in the fall, and have been very clear about what they expect to see in terms of addressing the needs within their classrooms. And I've heard government say, well, we're confused. What do teachers want?
They're asking for clarity. That seems to be the terminology that
I think
often using.
A rejection of a memorandum of agreement is clarity. What was presented there that government is willing to do to address these issues is not good enough for teachers, and they need to see government step up to do more. We can't be the least funded in all of Canada for 10 years and look at the consequences of that within our classrooms and expect that just something is going to fix that right away, and that teachers are just going to say, okay, well, status quo was fine. It's not enough for them.
Okay, so is it inevitable then that a strike will happen? Because it doesn't feel like either there's much movement, no matter from which side. There's no movement to get back to the table. So is it inevitable?
I would say yes. I mean, teachers are willing to take this step to go on strike, and they recognize fully the disruption it causes for families and for students and for learning. But they're willing to take this step because they believe that they need more. They're standing up for themselves, they're standing up for their students, they're standing up for public education, and they're willing to take this step forward in order to get government to finally listen and make genuine movement towards the things that they need to see.
What do you make of the government preparing to offer parents of students 12 and under $30 a day?
$150 a week tells me that they're willing to pay parents childcare costs instead of sitting down at the table and having a conversation. And it makes me question the urgency of what you saw the Premier saying. We've got a couple days and hopefully they'll come to the table. But they've already had this plan in place. They don't just create a plan like they did that they announced yesterday overnight. So they've had plans in place. So it makes me wonder if they are legitimately interested in sitting down and having a conversation about how do we come to a solution and get to a settlement here.
What's the mood of your membership? What are your teachers reflecting?
My teachers and my colleagues, as I've talked to them across the province, I've never seen them in a state of frustration and anger right now. They're frustrated with the state of their classrooms and how they can't meet the needs of their students. They're tired of watching kids fall through the cracks, and they feel disrespected by this government for years of neglect. So their voices are not heard on curriculum redevelopment. They have no say on mandatory assessments that are being done in kindergarten and grades 1 to 3. They have no say on all sorts of things that are added there. Then you add this summer a book ban, and then you add legislation on pronoun use. The teachers don't want to out kids. And then the fairness in sport legislation about for girls over 12 to play sports. You add all of these little disrespects over time, and the membership is feeling hurt by all of it, and they are frustrated. And I agree with them, rightfully so, they should be.
Last 20 seconds to you, sir. What is your message to the Alberta government to get this fixed?
The government has caused this issue. This is a mess that they created by this chronic underfunding, and they still think that people will just do more with less. And that's just simply not going to work this time. Teachers have been told time and time again, we'll get you next time. Well, that time has arrived right now.
All right, we'll have to leave it there in terms of time. Mr. Schilling, always appreciate yours. Thank you, sir.